Good evening. I'm John Batchelor. This is The John Batchelor Show. Politics. I'll look at the American political canvas later this evening with my colleague Monica Crowley. However, there's politics of democracy around the world, and my colleague and friend Gordon Chang joins me of the Daily Beast, and we're immediately off to Seoul, South Korea, because there's a scandal about a president. Sounds like Washington, but it's not. It's Seoul. Gordon, what is this scandal?
It's fascinating. Park Geun-hye, the president of the Republic of Korea, South Korea, is certainly under fire, with people in the streets demanding that she resign because an acquaintance of hers may have profited financially from her dealings with President Park. But it's not that simple. It's on a broad canvas where South Korean presidents seem to be in trouble the moment they take office. And Park, who's done, I thought, very well, is now in danger of losing her position.
It used to be said that you left number 10 Downing either on a stretcher or in a straitjacket. Is that the same way in South Korea?
Well, No Mo-hyun, a couple presidents ago, took his own life after he left. Lee Min-bok, his successor, who I thought did a fantastic job, left office disgraced, and it looks like the same thing is going to happen to President Park. So, yes, in a way, it's very much the same.
We welcome our colleague Bob Collins, a veteran of the Department of Defense and analyst for the Korean Peninsula. He is in Seoul this morning. He's also the author of the just-released Pyongyang Republic, North Korea's capital of human rights denial. We'll get to that in a moment, but right now we're stopping at Seoul. Bob, a very good morning to you. Is this dominating headlines? Have we got a suddenly presidential scandal gap opening between Seoul and Washington? Good morning.
Good morning. And while we certainly do have a big scandal, the Park is facing a lot of criticism that is not abnormal in Korean politics. The South Koreans look at the character of their president very closely. It's not unlike, it's parallel what's going on in U.S. politics, but it's a different attitude among the people who think that character matters, and they hold their presidents to a very high standard. And when something of this nature happens, the young people go to the street for two reasons. One is the character issue, but two, they carry on the revolutionary attitude of their generations before them in the 70s and 80s in protesting presidents and dictatorships, and that has contributed, the legacy of dictatorships has contributed to the attitude about how they treat their presidents. And most of the presidents for South Korea either end up being indicted or going to jail or just being disgraced. Nobody gets out very freely.
Bob, when we look at President Park, she has really supported the U.S. alliance. In July, her administration announced that they were going to deploy the Terminal High Altitude Area Defense System, the missile defense system from the United States. This is, an important advance for the U.S. in Asia. Is her possible leaving office, is that going to affect the alliance between South Korea and the U.S.?
I don't think so. Even though the liberal politicians that oppose Park will use that type of thing as ammunition in order to get elected, when it comes time to making decisions on their defense when they're in office, they pretty much decide to do what's best for their own defense. I don't think that is going to impact THAAD whatsoever.
I want to follow this carefully to understand. Is the president now threatened, or is this an embarrassment? Is there a scale like that there, Bob?
Well, I would put it between the two levels that you just discussed. When a scandal like this happens in South Korea, the norm is to fire your prime minister and much of your staff and replace them and think that is somehow going to resolve everything. Her problem is that it's not unlike the Clinton scandals. She's accused of giving classified information to somebody who's nothing more than a high school bud. and shouldn't have access to such information. And so for the politicians on the liberal side, this is the point that they're attacking and say, demand that she resign. I don't think she's going to resign, but she's going to replace her prime minister. She's going to replace a major portion of her staff, and she'll use that as a means to ameliorate the concerns. She's only got less than a year and a half left, so I think that she'll be able to weather this until elections next 2 Decembers from now.
So, Bob, the ruling party was going to face a tough election campaign to have another president. Is this going to mean that the progressives are going to be able to replace the ruling party, or is this maybe going to be forgotten by then?
No, it won't be forgotten. I think that the progressives, they're just they're feasting at the fire here. This is all falling into their position of let's build a story against the conservatives, and I think that they're going to come out doing very, very well. And the most important thing is that their National Assembly will probably do even better than in the presidential election, which means even if a conservative wins next time, the ability to impeach is going to be pretty impressive.
North Korea has been issuing a number of propaganda blasts about this. I guess they must be pretty happy in Pyongyang these days.
Yes, absolutely. Anything that is unsettling for the South Korean government, the North Korean loves, and the Kim Gi-nam, who heads up the propaganda and agitation department. He's been doing that for several decades now. He's about 80, but still very good. This falls right into his alley. They're very, very good at exploiting propaganda about the corruption of the South, and they feed that. They have several lines of feeding that into the South Korean public and to exacerbate the situation. That's, the North-South relations are a key component of politics in South Korea, something that we don't see in our country.
The defense ministry is watching North Korea for an imminent test of a missile. Anything different about this missile? Any reason that we should pay attention to this as opposed to the earlier iterations of this, Bob?
I think the important consideration for this is that the North Koreans have to practice on a lot of things that are associated with missile command and control. Live fire, they can do all the war gaming that they want, but live fire exercises are important not only on the scientific side to improve their missiles, but also their ability to establish a control system that they're not sure of. And it's very important to understand that in every single military enterprise, in command, they have 3 reporting systems: the commander, the political officer, and the security officer. And they've got to work out those details to make sure that they've got this correct. It's something that we don't have to deal with, and this is an important consideration.
There's a speculation that the North Koreans, when they fire this missile off, maybe 24 hours, maybe 48 hours from now, that they're going to send off a Musadan, an intermediate range missile. Do you think there's a possibility that they will fire off a KN-08, KN-14 long-range missile, and that this test will be more significant? Or do you think that that's just not possible at this point?
No, I think it's possible. I think that most of the Musadans that they have tested have not gone for a very, very long range. The extension of their range. And so I wouldn't be surprised if this particular launch ends up demonstrating just how far this Musadan can reach. That's the scientific approach to improving their missiles. So they've got to somehow get to the point where they can prove that. They've done that. As you know, they've sold Musadans to Iran, and they've tested them there.
Bob Collins, a veteran advisor to the Department of Defense, especially on the Korean Peninsula and North Asia. He's the author of the just-released Pyongyang Republic, North Korea's Capital of Human Rights Denial. I look forward to the volume. Gordon Chang of the Daily Beast. There is a scandal in Seoul. There's a scandal in Washington. It's that time of year. I'm John Batchelor.